But I'll say this: you like Chicago, you have no players. Sign Phil Kessel. Why have they not signed Phil Kessel? Like it's mind-boggling.
Just to get him to 1,000 points,
Yeah, exactly, and to continue his streak.
You're now listening to the Boys in the Booth podcast with your hosts, Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams.
That's a big one.
Yeah!
Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Boys in the Booth podcast this week, episode 196. And it's great to have the three of us back together, Cody, Abrams, and Melbourne, for this one as we continue, guys, with our in-season check-ins for all four NHL divisions. Last week we talked about the Pacific. Case, we missed you for that one, but glad to have you back on for the Central this week, of course. So we're going to dive into that. But first, how we doing, fellas?
Finally doing well. I was bedridden dead last week at this time, and it was bad. My colds are usually 1 or 2 days max. I sleep a bunch and then I'm ready to go. Well, I had terrible fever and coughing up a lung and just sick for probably 10 days straight. And it was rough.
So you had a man cold, is what you're saying. It was a full-blown man cold, is what you're saying.
Usually I'd agree with that, but this was, I don't know, I started to think I had pneumonia or something.
Jeez. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better, Case. I'm also feeling better. I don't know if I told you about this, but I told Harper. I just ruined my back a couple weeks ago, so I've literally been hobbling around. And finally today, it's been exactly 2 weeks since it happened, and I'm starting to walk better and stuff after doing tons of stretching, tons of exercising. And Harper was kind of giving it to me when I told him, because that's just getting old. That's what it's like.
Yeah, you're talking about this on the podcast that I listened to.
Did you listen to it? I don't believe you.
It was minus 10 degrees that night in Toronto, Ontario, and the cold was messing with your back hip problem.
Yeah, well, you know what, Harp? Maybe you could take some notes from Case, because he listens when he's not on the show.
You know what? I did listen, and that brings me to my first topic.
Okay, here we go.
After we hear how Harper Cody is doing.
Okay.
Doing good, and I know what you're gonna get into there, Case. But yeah, no, doing well. Don't really have much to say, just kind of continuing along here, and glad that January is almost over. January's certainly not the easiest month to get into after the holidays and all that, but we're almost at the end of it here already and almost into February. So exciting times ahead for sure.
Yeah. So last episode, when you talked about the Pacific, I was told to not even try to talk about this, but I'm not going to just sit there and let you guys talk about this without any input from me at all. And this is the Vancouver Canucks. I want to read a couple quick quotes for you. I went back and listened to the Pacific preseason rankings. Quote number 1, I just want this on record, me saying this team is going to come forth. Next quote is, they had embers last year, and I think gasoline will be dumped on those. And the last set of quotes is, so Case, do you have them making playoffs at 5? No. I have them at 4 making the playoffs, and you vetoed that. Clip that. So that's just what I wanted to say. And then also, I wanted to point out that, Chad, you had them at 6th, not 5th. You said on the podcast that you and Harper had them 5th, but you had them 6. Harper never stated when he had him. He said 5-6 flip-flop with Calgary, and he didn't really put which one was which. But what I want to say is that, I can still see this team dropping from first and being more like a third in the Pacific, just based off, PDO and the goal differential above expected. It's 43.31, which is first in the entire league, meaning they're scoring more goals than they should and getting scored on less than they should. Mm-hmm. But I was pretty high on the team. I couldn't just imagine putting them above Edmonton or Vegas. And I also like LA a lot. So the reason for them to be at 4, but I did have them as a playoff team. And
you did.
I'm not ridiculously shocked at where they are.
That is so fair, Case. I knew you were going to come with ammunition. On last pod though, I just had to say like, oh, one spot, and Case was like, oh, don't paint a bad picture for me, like, but so we're just teasing you. But yes, Vancouver, we pointed out some of the stats that are going in their favor. They're getting a bit lucky. They're likely going to regress. All of that being said, boys, this week we got some absolute hate mail on YouTube for that take specifically, people saying we're ridiculous to say that Vancouver's going to regress. And also coming out of that episode, even more hate mail for this, me saying a little bit tongue in cheek that I think the Edmonton Oilers would have the exact same record if Jay Woodcroft was still a head coach. So those were two, not so hot takes. At least I didn't think they were very hot, that we said last week that have kind of turned our YouTube up in flames, which is, it's always nice to see because the engagement is good for us.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
I got a kick out of listening to that Pacific ranking and how many times I was like, I just want it on record that I just want the people to remember this.
Actually, Kay, so it's funny you say that because I went back and listened to the Central and you said that you wanted it on record about a different team, but that hasn't gone exactly as planned so far. But so that's, we do these preseason rankings and crazy shit happens.
I want to say in general, I was listening back to the episode. I was very right about the Pacific Division. Mm-hmm. Like, kind of had them in the exact order they're in, except Vancouver was in 4 and not 1. If you flip Vancouver from 4 to 1, I had the whole rankings. And then like the individual points about the teams were pretty accurate too. Fuck, was I not right about the Central Division though?
The Central, I feel like, is throwing everyone for a loop. And that's what we're going to talk about. So, Harper, if it's okay with you, we'll get into what our preseason rankings were, what the current standings are now. Then we'll go what we were most wrong about, what we were bang on about, and then the teams who, it's kind of to be determined whether we were right or wrong. So,
that's right. So, same as last week. This is how we're going to structure them for all 4 of our in-season check-in episodes. So, Chad, go ahead. Our preseason rankings for this division and the current standings in the Central.
Yeah. So, the preseason rankings, we had Dallas, Colorado, Minnesota, Winnipeg, Nashville, Arizona, St. Louis, and Chicago in that order. And the current standings as of January 23rd at 6:27 p.m. Eastern Standard Time rather, is Winnipeg in first, then Colorado, Dallas, Nashville, Arizona, St. Louis, Minnesota, and Chicago. So right off the bat, it's very clear that we were most wrong about Winnipeg and Minnesota for different reasons. We were bang on Chicago and to a lesser extent Colorado and Dallas because they're both still right at the top of that division and it doesn't look like anyone can compete with them aside from Winnipeg, who's in first. And then the teams who were kind of right about it's still to be determined: Arizona, St. Louis, and Nashville. And I remember there being quite a heated debate actually about St. Louis and Arizona, and we're going to get into that. But why don't we start then with the team we were most wrong about, the Winnipeg Jets, because what the heck? Harp, why don't you set it up?
We interrupt this podcast to tell you about one of our favorite partners, Sign Up Expert. If you're a sports bettor, whether a brand new one, casual, or hardcore, listen very carefully because this ad is for you. Guys, line shopping for the best odds matters, and that's why any profitable sports bettor needs to be using multiple sports books to maximize their winnings. Thankfully, there has never been a better time to get signed up, and we are here to connect you with the best promotions industry-wide. When you use our link at signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth, you can get access to all the top sportsbooks in your region, along with a review of each platform and their benefits. Most importantly, all of these sportsbooks have valuable sign-up offers for new users, and when you register through our link, again, signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth, you will automatically receive the top offer at each one, allowing you to start line shopping with an enhanced bankroll. Guys, once again, it's simple. When you use multiple sportsbooks, you ensure that you can always access the best available odds out there, which is key to being successful and taking home those winnings, baby. So, if you want to take advantage of these incredible benefits and support our brand all at the same time, it's a win-win. Please consider signing up for your next sportsbook through our link in the description down below. signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. One more time, that's signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. Hey guys, Harp here from the pod. We all want two things as sports fans when it comes to buying tickets: to not be ripped off by scalpers and to have an easy way to do it. That's where SeatGeek comes in. This pod is sponsored by the absolute best ticket app out there, SeatGeek. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, making it quick and easy to get the best deals on tickets to your favorite sporting events. It does this awesome thing where they score each ticket out of 10 based on its value, so you know whether you're getting a good deal or not. If the tickets are green, you'd better act quick and secure those things, but if the tickets are red, maybe wait a little bit before pulling the trigger and monitor the price in the SeatGeek app. SeatGeek just makes it way too easy. Anyways, here's the best part. SeatGeek has completely hooked us up. Boys in the Booth listeners get $20 off their first purchase on SeatGeek with the promo code Boys in the Booth in all caps. Click the link in the description to download the app today. And remember to get your discounted tickets to your favorite sporting events using the code Boys in the Booth in all caps. Get great seats for a fraction of the cost with SeatGeek. Now back to your regularly scheduled podcast. Yeah, exactly. So, look, it's been an incredible season for the Winnipeg Jets. They've been one of, if not the best story in the NHL this year. And first of all, what a great season it's been for Western Canadian teams. You look at the Oilers now on a 13-game rip, and that could certainly keep going. They've got a game against the Columbus Blue Jackets tonight. As we're recording here, that one starts at 9 o'clock. But yeah, it's great to see the Jets doing well. 64 points, third overall, 8-2 in their last 10. There's one stat that sticks out, and I want to mention this quick, and then Case, we'll go to you first with your thoughts on the Jets. But they've surrendered more than 3 goals in a game once since November 2nd, guys, and that was in a game on Monday night, like just last the other night
Boston.
Last night, on against the Boston Bruins, and that is absolutely wild. So that was the stat that I wanted to bring up. Okay, Winnipeg, what a season! First overall in the Central, third overall in the NHL. Case, we'll go to you first, man. What are your thoughts on the Jets?
Yeah, I saw that stat like a week ago, and I wasn't sure if it was still going as of tonight or not, but that's like how you want to model a team. Like, that's the perfect formula. Don't allow a lot of goals. You're going to end up winning more games than not. I think that anyone who is sitting here right now saying that they thought this team would be first in the division and third in the entire league, they're liars. No one was predicting that. We were looking at them and having difficulty because of the past, thinking like, this team is always supposed to be good and is just so right there, mediocre, like hanging on to the edge of a playoff spot. So we were kind of sheepish on putting them anywhere higher, especially with the other 3 teams we were talking about. But we knew the D-core was going to be steady, and we knew that Hellebuck is, the most consistent goalie in the league, but we didn't think that they would combine to have the least amount of goals against per game in the entire league. I attribute this to 3 things. The first one, I have to give respect to Connor Hellebuck, who is playing out of his mind with 21.4 goals saved above expected. And then also I side shout out to Brossoit, because this team save percentage is 94.5%, 05%, which is phenomenal. Between the two of them, Hellebuck obviously sharing most of the load, but Brossoit has also been great. The second thing is Team D has been way better than expected. They've allowed the least amount of total high danger and medium danger scoring chances combined at 309 in the entire league. So they're not giving up a ton of dangerous chances with a great goalie. What a great combination that is. And the last thing, just a dash of luck, because the goals against above expected of negative 24.13 is best in league and has to have just a little element of luck. I know the goal differential above expected is second best in the league after Vancouver. So I got to say that they're getting a little bit on the lucky side, but man, this team, defense and goaltending, is saving them.
Yeah, and that was something that we talked about in our preseason rankings, really. Like, you know, when is it going to be this team's year? They didn't lose a ton of goals. That was something we talked about. You know, Blake Wheeler's not here anymore, but it just didn't look, and Pierre-Luc Dubois, but it just didn't look like those subtractions were going to mean fewer goals for this team. And so far, that's been the case. You know, they're not lighting the world on fire with the amount of goals they're scoring, but they're scoring enough to get by because they're a defensively structured team. And we've been waiting for this team on paper. Always look so good, but we've been waiting for them to actually find their way and be good in the standings. And this is the year, man, and they can't waste it. With Hellebuyck playing this good, the team defense being so strong, it's just incredible. But like Casey said, we'll be the first to say that we did not have them finishing first in this division, and I don't think many people did unless they work for Bar Down. There's one guy there who might.
Well, they're playing playoff hockey, so you know, if they can stay in one of the top spots heading into the playoffs, we're going to be talking about them a lot more.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. The Leafs have 2 games against them coming up. I'm interested to see how that looks, because the Leafs have not been playing very good hockey as of late, and Winnipeg has. So that means that obviously the Leafs will probably win both of those games. But that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, great points by both you guys on the Jets, and certainly the goaltending. What a great tandem of not only Hellebuyck, as we know, who's elite, but Brossoit just works with this team, and also the back end. And they're going to have some decisions to make on guys like Dillon and DeMello, who are very good defensemen who expire at the end of the season. Dylan Sandberg is also a guy who has had very quietly a great season on the blue line for this team. But you look at the forward group, and that's kind of what I want to focus on for a minute here. Like, they're just getting contributions from everybody up and down the lineup, and with guys who are just really good pros who have been around the block a little bit and just fit in really well with this team. Guys like Nemesnikov, Niederreiter, Iafallo, who is obviously a part of the Velarde deal with the LA Kings. A guy like Adam Lowry, who I think is a great leader on this team. Ehlers, like these guys that I don't think get enough credit. And obviously, you know, Scheifele is having a great season. Say what you want about him, but he's having a fantastic year. Kyle Connor, you know, who had been out of the lineup for some time, and this team was still going really well without him in the lineup, and I think that really says a lot. So, look, I just look at this team, and last year, you know, all the question marks after last season and the big blow up press conference from Rick Bowness after they got out in the first round by Vegas. You know, I think it's safe to say we thought that there would be more changes to this organization. Scheifele and Hellebuyck stick around, and really the only 2 big changes were Blake Wheeler being bought out, and I think that needed to happen. You know, he gets stripped to the sea by Rick Bowness in the beginning. They really didn't see eye to eye, you know, going back and forth at each other in the media and things like that. So I think he's just a guy that really fell out of favor there. And then obviously Pierre-Luc Dubois didn't want to be there, and he's really struggled in LA, as we know, and that entire team is struggling right now. And that trade has really worked out for them so far. So really happy for this Winnipeg Jets team. We've been saying for years, like with Vancouver, it's no different. This team is great on paper, and for some reason, just the culture isn't right or whatever. So I really like this team, and really glad that they're going as well as they are. And Bonus has got to be right there with Tocchet in terms of coach of the year candidates for sure.
Yeah, when we were talking about these guys preseason, we were saying, we see 2 of their top 5 scorers leaving this team. Well, some guys are going to have to step up. And we pointed out Perfetti and Velarde. While Velarde was phenomenal early in the season, started to slow down and now is suffering with an injury, but Perfetti has been fantastic. And maybe more of a surprise is Iafallo, how much he's contributed to this team in creating chances and driving that up the other side of the top line, because I don't think we expected him to come and contribute in that way. We were expecting a third line player. Well, he's been great. And it's funny you mentioned Sandberg, because I was looking at pairings earlier, and analytically, Sandberg and Schmidt has been one of the most reliable pairs that have played more than 200 minutes together in the entire league. So when you're talking about your bottom pair being that reliable, and you still have a great top 4 on top of that, like they got to be liking where they're at on the back end.
Absolutely. All right, fellas, let's move on to the team in the number 2 spot. Of course, we were bang on about these next 2 teams that we're going to talk about in terms of, being high up in this division, being contenders and that sort of thing. The Colorado Avalanche, 7-3 7-3-0 in their last 10, and may have the best player on the planet right now, and that is Nathan MacKinnon. 77 points in 47 games. Like, this is really the year where he's, breaking out, I guess you could say. Like, he's going to have well over 100 points, and we've been kind of waiting, I think, for this offensive production from Nathan MacKinnon, and he's got to be the favorite for the Hart Trophy right now. So anyway, let's talk about Colorado and the sum of their parts, and second in this division currently, just a point behind the Winnipeg Jets, as a matter of fact. So they could certainly end up at the top of this division when it's all said and done.
Yeah, we talked and say, we didn't expect Winnipeg to be up there, and that we were off on our projections for that. But realistically, the top 3 teams in this division could shuffle around for the rest of the season. And we don't know who's going to be 1, 2, or 3. The rest of the division, I don't care. Like, they're not even close. So the top 3, they're going to be fighting it out.
And might not be playoff teams either, Case. That's something to consider too.
Oh, I fully was going to say later on in this episode that I think the Pacific has both the wild cards. So yeah,
fair enough.
It's not the case right now, but I that's how I see it playing out. Now, Nathan MacKinnon, they needed him to step up big in the way he has, because this team has elected to go the route of scoring more goals than their opponents. They are not playing like Winnipeg. They've allowed the 8th most goals against in the entire league, but they've scored the 3rd most goals. And a lot of that has to do with the top dogs of this team, specifically MacKinnon, who has just been outer planetary. He's been phenomenal, but you got to give out some shout outs to some of the guys in the depth category, because Drouin has been a delight on Colorado. Ross Colton has come over and seen more favorable ice time, kind of like we talked about in the preseason rankings, and he's been excellent. And a guy like Logan O'Connor has been contributing way more than expected. So you're getting goals up and down the lineup, and the top dogs are producing. The defense could certainly be better. And the goaltending has been mediocre. So I guess they're going to just keep scoring more, and it's working. So I guess don't change it.
Yeah, and I don't have too much to add on this, because like you guys both mentioned, we were pretty much bang on in Colorado. I mean, we did pick them to finish second, and they are in second. We just didn't have Winnipeg in first. We had Dallas in first. So it's pretty close. So, but we were bang on in Colorado in the number 2 spot. So I don't have much to add. What I'll say is, to quote Sheldon Keefe, when those guys are going, the top guys like MacKinnon and Makar, that's not the NHL. That's a whole different league. I don't know exactly what Keefe was getting at when he was saying that. I think he was trying to say they're very good, but it was phrased very oddly. But yeah, it's been clear this year that those guys are really, really, really damn good. And this team is going to go as far as their stars can take them. Now, there've been some rumblings that perhaps they're getting their captain back for the playoffs. We don't know exactly how true that is, but the guy's skating. The guy's skating right now. And, last year in the playoffs, this team was stunned by Seattle. So this year they are going to be, it's cup or bust. Like, this is a team who can compete for the cup. They're going to add at the deadline. It's cup or bust, really. So I'm not surprised that they're sitting in second place in their division, just 1 point behind first.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not much else for me to add about Colorado. Obviously, sucks to lose Val Nichushkin into the player assistance program, and of course, he left the team early in the first round of the playoffs in that series against Seattle, and we really didn't get a lot of clarity on what exactly happened there. But anyway, he's away from the team, and it's too bad because he's locked up long term, and he was having a great season as well. So they're really going to miss him. We'll wait and see about Landeskog. Case, you mentioned a few guys there in Colton, Drouin, who I'm really happy for, and Logan O'Connor, as well as some nice depth players, but they definitely want to add some more depth to this forward group, I think. You look at that second line center position in particular, and Ryan Johansson just has not done the job since coming over at a reduced cap hit from Nashville. So, there have been rumblings that Colorado could make a big splash and maybe be a suitor for Elias Lindholm. We'll have to see. I would also throw a name like Sean Monahan in there too. And then the other hole that I'm looking at for this team is the goaltending behind Georgiev, because I think that Georgiev has played a ton of games. He's stretched a little thin, and it's something that Chris McFarland, the GM, actually brought up in an interview with Frank Saravalli, that ideally 55 games is kind of the number that he'd like for Georgiev, I believe is what he said, but he's projected to go way over that. And you've had Francouz, who's been banged up, a Noonan or Annanen, again, hasn't really done the job, and Prosvetov, who was a waiver claim from the Yotes, hasn't really done the job either. So they, I would think they look for a goaltender and try to solidify that second line center position. You can move down Johansson. Colton is perfect in that 3C spot, just like he was with the Tampa Bay Lightning. But other than that, guys, I mean, they could certainly win the cup again. Their second one in 3 years. The Colorado Avalanche, certainly contenders once again.
Yeah, especially if they do some IR cap manipulating with Landeskog, like every team that's won the cup in the last 6 years, then they're definitely looking good.
Yeah, when we found out that he was skating again, that's the first thing I thought of. Here we go, and you have Nikita Kucherov's voice in your head just saying 10 million over the cap, or what was it, 18 million over the cap? Was that what it was?
I
that he said
exactly what it was.
Shirtless with Bud Lights, and anyway, but we'll have to see there. It would be great to see Landeskog back though, because he's a hell of a player and a big part of this team. All right, number 3 in this division. We mentioned them a few minutes ago. We were pretty much bang on about the Dallas Stars. Certainly a contender, 60 points on the season so far. They're 5-3-2 in their last 10. I know that there's one particular player that's going to get brought up in this. He's a former Av who has fit in perfectly with this team, and we'll certainly get to him. But what do we think about the Dallas Stars right now, guys?
We interrupt this podcast to tell you about one of our favorite partners, Sign Up Expert. If you're a sports bettor, whether brand new, casual, or hardcore, listen very carefully because this ad is for you. Guys, line shopping for the best odds matters, and that's why any profitable sports bettor needs to be using multiple sports books to maximize their profits. Thankfully, there's never been a better time to get signed up, and we're here to connect you with the best promotions industry-wide. When you use our link at signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth, you can get access to all the top sportsbooks in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique benefits. Most importantly, all of these sportsbooks have valuable sign-up offers for new users, and when you register through our link, you will automatically receive the top offer at each one, allowing you to start line shopping right away with an enhanced bankroll. Guys, it's simple. When you use multiple sportsbooks, you ensure that you can always access the best available odds, which is key to successful and profitable sports betting. So if you want to take advantage of these incredible benefits and support our brand at the same time, please consider signing up for your next sportsbook through the link in the description down below, signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. If you're planning on signing up for a new sportsbook anyways, you might as well use the link and support the boys. So one more time, that's signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. This podcast is also sponsored by the absolute best ticket app out there, SeatGeek. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, making it quick and easy to get the best deals on tickets to your favorite sporting events. SeatGeek does this awesome thing where they score each ticket out of 10 based on its value, so you know if you're getting a good or a bad deal. If the tickets are green, for example, you better act quick and secure those things because that's a good deal, but if the tickets are red, maybe wait a bit before pulling the trigger and monitor the price in the app. SeatGeek just makes it way too easy. Anyway, here's the best part though. SeatGeek has completely hooked us up. Boys in the Booth listeners get $20 off their first purchase on SeatGeek with the promo code Boys in the Booth in all caps. So click the link in the description down below to download the app, and remember to get your discounted tickets using the code Boys in the Booth in all caps. Get great seats for a fraction of the cost with SeatGeek.
Well, I think we're getting exactly what we were expecting out of them, and that's goals. This team is scoring at will, and it's coming from exactly who we expect it to come from. Maybe we weren't expecting Matt Duchene, who I think is what Harper was talking about, to be almost a point per game player, but Hintz and Heiskanen and Robertson, like all of the guys you expect to be scoring on this team, including Pavelski and Ben and all the top dogs, they are producing. Wyatt Johnson, who I said is better than every player on Nashville except for Forsberg, and I'll stand by that, except maybe Ryan O'Reilly now added into the mix. But this team is scoring, and I think the only thing that's holding them out of the second spot in this division is they are not getting the all-star goaltending that they've come to expect out of Ottinger. He's been kind of league average at this point, and Wedgwood has kind of drifted back from what he put up last year. So the goaltending hasn't quite been there for this team, but man, has the scoring ever been there.
Yeah, and that was something I was going to bring up too, Case. It's just the goaltending. You can never, it's hard in today's NHL to put too much stock into goaltending, no matter how good some of these guys are, because it's the position where you get the smallest sample size of games, and it's hard to evaluate. So, Ottinger, he's still a really good goalie. He's been about average, which, if you're Dallas to this point in the season, it's been good enough because, you're sitting in a playoff spot very comfortably and you're not worried about it. You just have to hope he gets hot during the playoffs. This is another team who, the regular season isn't much of a trouble for them with their current roster. It's going to come down to the playoffs, and, we've talked about them being built for it. So, this is pretty much where we thought Dallas was going to be. Their stars are going. Duchene's been better than Johansson, which is something that I remember us talking about, who got the better former Pred in the offseason, the Avalanche or the Stars. And that's why actually one of the reasons why we picked the Stars to finish first. But this team is pretty good. They're sitting 4 points out of first place right now. And it's pretty much right where we had them. So I don't really have too much to add. I feel like that's becoming a theme, but it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
My 3 bets, 2 of my 3 bets I made before the season started on Cup winners. I threw a couple flyers out there. 2 of them are still alive in Dallas and Vancouver. My third one I made was a little bit more of they have ridiculous odds. So if it hits, it's going to be great. And I thought of any team that's just going to bullshit their way into a cup, it would be the Calgary Flames. That one's looking a little less good, but my Dallas and Vancouver bets are still alive.
Calgary might still make the playoffs, man.
They might be the second wild card.
They're not out of it. And we don't know what they're going to do at the deadline. I mean, they're probably not going to buy, but like they might not sell either. Who knows?
Might do a little bit of both. Might be like Nashville from last year. I think I said that last week.
Yeah, if you want to be mid forever, just do that.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, just really quick on Dallas. I don't have much more to add either. But I think that you'd probably want to extend Duchesne. Dollars and term are going to be tricky, but he's fit like a glove with this team. He's been a really nice addition. Not only the top dogs, but a lot of good young players in this lineup and coming too. Like, this is just a really well-run organization, as we've talked about before. I still think they could add a little bit on their back end. I just don't know if there's enough there depth-wise. We know that Heiskanen, as great as he's been, he has missed a handful of games due to injury, and he is expected back between Thursday to Saturday, I read before we jumped on here. So it'll be great to get him back in. A guy like Thomas Harley continues to elevate his game. They need to get Ottinger back and going. And look, even though Wedgwood has an 899 save percentage, I think he's been good enough. In
the early part of the year, he was fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And
league average these days is like what, 904, 903. So
yeah, something like that. And there's another a goaltender that we consider elite in this division that we're going to talk about here next. That is kind of having an up and down year as well. So. Yeah, but not much more to say about Dallas. They're scoring at will. I think they could add a little bit on the back end. I think that's something that Jim Nill is looking to do. Get that elite goaltending from Jake Ottinger. Certainly, Wedgwood can be better as well. And yeah, this team is going to be a contender. All right, fellas, we'll move on to that number 5 spot, talking about the Nashville Predators. And there was certainly a lot of debate about this team amongst the three of us, and the job that Barry Trotz had done in the summer as he entered his first year as general manager of this team. But they're right there in the number 4 spot, 51 points. And so from Dallas and down, you really see the drop off in points, certainly, as you alluded to there, Case. There's going
to be like a 15 to 20 point difference between 3 and 4 in this division at the end of the year.
Exactly. So Nashville, I think they've been better than we expected. They've had their ups and downs. They're 500 through their last 10 games. What do we have to say about the Preds?
I still don't know how this team is in 4th. I have no clue. I was giggling listening to our episode about me just ripping on this team because I put Harper through the spin cycle having him construct a top 6 out of these forwards, and it was fun. But I like, the Stars are scoring. The goaltending hasn't been great. The team is not scoring a ton. They're getting scored on lots. Their penalty kill is terrible. Their power play is mediocre. It's like how they have been, I guess the right things click in certain games and they win those ones. What is this team? I have not much to say about it.
Yeah, I'm also not exactly sure what's going on here, but we did put them in the 5th spot and they're in 4th. So it's one of these teams that, like, we weren't really exactly sure what to expect going into the season, and we're still kind of in the same spot. We're not really exactly sure what to expect right now. Are they going to sell? Are they going to buy? Are they going to hold? Are they, is this a team that even wants to make the playoffs and just get bounced in the first round? Or should this team be selling a guy like UC Saros as soon as he strings together 2 or 3 good games in a row? Because like Harper, you alluded to, that's been a problem for this team. The goaltending, UC Saros has not been good this year. In the previous 3 seasons, he's been incredible, like top 5, 10 in terms of the advanced stats. So that's been something that's odd, given the fact that this team is currently in 4th. It's odd that their goaltending, which is like the identity of this team, or at least it used to be, isn't going. So I'm with you, Case. I don't know who the heck's scoring goals for this team. I don't know how they're getting wins, but I can't see them finishing in the top 4. I see a team like Arizona or even St. Louis leapfrogging them as the season goes on. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're only one spot off at the mid-season mark. So it's not crazy that they're here. It's not crazy that they're in 4th, I guess, compared to our preseason rankings, right?
Yeah. I just, again, I'm surprised that scoring hasn't been as much of an issue as we thought it would be coming into the season. They're not scoring a ton, as Case mentioned, but it's funny. We did say that, like, for them to score and get goals in games and that, I mean, Philip Forsberg would have to be their leading scorer. He certainly is, but it's funny. Like, we were joking before the start of the season. I think, Case, you mentioned it. Like, yeah, Forsberg will be their leading scorer with 60 points. Or something. So he's over a point per game right now, and we'll see if he can keep that up. But, O'Reilly's having a great year. Yossi continues to be one of the best defensemen in the league. And Gustav Nyquist as well has kind of revitalized himself a little bit with Nashville. I think he's 4th in scoring on this team, but then it kind of drops off from there. They've got a lot of young players still finding their way. They've got some decisions to make on the blue line. So like we said with the Calgary Flames, it's going to be really interesting to see what Trotz does here, because do you want to make the playoffs and waste 8 days? That great line by Daryl Sutter. Do you want to have is it going to be a waste of 8 days? Probably. Like, we don't see this team winning a round if they get into the playoffs. So is it more important to get in this year and add a piece or two? I get it, to reward the group, but you got to be looking at the bigger picture here. And I think that that's something that Trotz and company in Nashville are certainly trying to do as we get closer to the deadline.
I think Daryl Sutter wasted 2 years in Calgary, or however long he was a coach there for, because
he did.
Good God. And I wanted to say this. Nashville, we were kind of ragging on them for not being able to score. They have more goals than Arizona, St. Louis, Minnesota, and Chicago. They have the 4th most goals in the Central, and they're sitting in 4th place.
I'm not surprised about 3 of those teams. So
Chicago, St. Louis,
and Arizona.
Minnesota.
I thought they were going to be a better team.
Oh, for sure.
No kidding.
We all thought, and we all thought that, and we'll get to Minnesota here in a little bit. But it just goes to show, like, and I think we said this too. We figured that the Central was going to be the weakest division of the 4 going into this season, right? Like, there would be those 3 or 4 teams. Then it was kind of wide open from there. Like, there'd be a big drop off. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. So let's get to that 5 spot, the Arizona Coyotes. I've got my Yotes gear on, as you guys can see. And look, they're keeping pace. Like, they're right in the race right now. And they've got 49 points, 5-4-1 in their last 10. So not a great record, but they have won a couple of games in a row. They beat Pittsburgh last night. That was a big win for them. Sick pass by Logan Cooley to Jason Zucker. I don't know if you guys saw that, but
I thought you were going to say the other pass, the own goal pass.
No, not that one. No, but but Cooley just kind of chops it with one hand on the stick, cross ice to Jason Zucker, the former Penguin, and that was quite the highlight reel there. But look, we knew that Bill Armstrong wanted this team to take a step this year, to be playing meaningful games. Certainly looks like this team is set up to do that right till the end. Things could always change between now and the deadline, but this team looks good so far, and they certainly have a chance to squeak in here. So what do we have to say about the Coyotes?
I think that they are starting to slow down. We've seen that over the last month or so, and even into December, they started to slow down. There was a time early in the season that I was catching some flack in the Boys in the Booth fantasy chat because everyone thought this team was a playoff team all of a sudden, and I certainly didn't think that, and I was getting dumped on a little bit. But they've definitely come back down to earth a little bit. I still think that there's a little bit of growing pains going on here. Going to go back to what I was saying. My real negative point about this team is the defense and the lack of a number one center or a number two center. I think I was saying at the time as well. There's still some pains there as well. Definitely took a step in the right direction this year, and they continue to do that every year. So, two years down the road here, we're going to be talking about Arizona a lot, but you even see it in Cooley. He started out as like a point per game player. He's slowed down to like a half a point per game. And I think they're just coming back to earth a little bit. They're not going to be a playoff team. I don't think that Central gets either wild card spot, like we've said. And I think you just got to take the positives with Arizona here.
Agreed. It's encouraging that they're at least competing and they'll be playing meaningful games, Harper, like you mentioned.
Yep.
Probably all the way down the stretch. Like coming into this season, we didn't think that they were going to be a playoff team, but we thought they might give it a push. And, so far so good for Arizona. And if you actually sort by points percentage right now, they're sitting in 4th in the Central. So that's pretty encouraging. They also have a better goal differential than Nashville, who's technically in 4th. They're actually +5, which, is again, encouraging. That's what I keep coming back to. But Case, you're right, man. I was thinking the same thing. They started pretty hot and then kind of fizzled out. And I think that's a common trend you see amongst teams who were bad forever and start to become good. Like, I think you have to sort of break out of that culture of losing. And it's not easy to keep it up once you start winning games. Like, it's not easy to totally flip the script and continue winning. So I think that's, to be expected from Arizona.
And in fairness, they've been absolutely beaten up in the injuries.
Yeah.
They have been for sure.
That too. But even thinking of a guy like Cooley, who you brought up, and this argument applies to all of the rest of the college kids in the league right now. Matthew Nyes is another guy, these players have been accustomed to playing about 40 games a season for their last 2 to 3 seasons. And now all of a sudden it's like, hey, I know you played in college last year. Well, you got to play 82 games. You got to play 3.5 games a week in the NHL against like players who are bigger and stronger than you. Like, so the physical toll on players is something that I don't think gets talked about enough. And for Cooley, you're expected to be good, but you're not expected to come in and light the world on fire. All of the conversation was mostly about Connor Bedard. And, so it's okay that he's been a half a point a game player, after starting really hot. And, it's just to be expected that there will be some growing pains with this team. But all in all, we picked them to be around a bubble playoff team. Currently sitting in 4th, we picked them in 6th. It's kind of right around where we expected, at least in the same tier that we expected them to be.
I don't think Logan Cooley is going to be thinking about the guys who are calling him a power play and secondary assist merchant when he hits 1,000 points, a number of years down the road. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And not much more to add on Arizona. You guys know that, I like this team a lot. I like the direction that they're going in. And look, they're being realistic. And I think we're going to see that as we get closer to the deadline on March 8th. And Bill Armstrong said before the start of the season that he said, look, I don't think we're a playoff team yet, but certainly think that we can play meaningful games down the stretch, be in it right until the bitter end, and they certainly could do that. Wanted to mention a couple of guys, Connor Ingram, who has had his ups and downs during his career and everything. He's been fantastic and has overtaken the net from Karel Vejmelka, who just really hasn't been that good this year. Ingram has been great. And, Jeff Merrick, I was listening to him today, guys, and he came up with a really good point. He said, who are the real MVPs in the league? It's those goalies who make $1 million or less. You look at Ingram, He's on a 3-year deal. I think he's at 1.95 or whatever. So, almost $2 million or whatever, but he's been absolutely fantastic. And you look at other goalies around the league, a guy like Stolarz, Wedgwood, even though he's kind of dipped a little bit, Alex Lyon, what he's doing in Detroit and what he did last year in Florida. Sorry, Case, who did you mention?
Ersson.
Ersson in Philly, absolutely, and he's the guy there right now and has been for most of the season. So I wanted to mention Connor Ingram. He's been fantastic. Sean Durzi as well has been fantastic for this team, and just the offensive numbers and what he's been able to do. He's also in a contract year, so that's going to be interesting to see what Arizona gives him after this year. I would think you'd have to keep him around, but Case, it's back to the point that you mentioned a few minutes ago, just the lack of having a number one defenseman, because Sean Durzi is their number one defenseman right now, you'd have to say. And in reality, he's not a number one, but again, man, Arizona does this with defensemen. They did it with Gostisbehere, bring him in, turn him around. Didn't really have to turn around Sean Durzi, but just a guy who gets a bigger opportunity with the team looking to take another step in the right direction. So I like that a lot. What were you going to say? Sorry.
He's weathered the storm better than I thought he would. When we talked about these guys in the preseason, I said, Sean Durzi's going to be coming over after playing on the second pair in LA, getting sheltered minutes, because of Doughty and Anderson, and he's going to come in and have to play a ton of minutes and be quarterback one on the PP. Well, he's handled that pretty well, and I'm pleasantly surprised with what he's done. But that being said, he's still not a number one defenseman, and this team seriously lacks that. Talking about Connor Ingram, when I put this team at 7th in my rankings, I did not expect Connor Ingram to win them so many games. So that's one of the areas I was wrong in. I think I said he's going to be a fine goalie. Well, he's been great.
I have all the love in the world for Connor Ingram. I will say, though, when I went to see him, he got absolutely lit up in Arizona against the Senators. And
they still won that game, though.
Yeah, he got pulled. That's why. Vejmelka came in, stole the show, didn't allow a single goal, and they won. So that was a tough first.
After what Ingram did, they weren't expected to win that game anymore. So Vejmelka, of course, won the game. That's what he does. He wins when he's not supposed to win.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We interrupt this podcast to tell you about one of our favorite partners, Sign Up Expert. If you're a sports bettor, whether brand new, casual, or hardcore, listen very carefully because this ad is for you. Guys, line shopping for the best odds matters, and that's why any profitable sports bettor needs to be using multiple sports books to maximize their profits. Thankfully, there has never been a better time to get signed up, and we are here to connect you with the best promotions industry-wide. When you use our link at signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth, you can get access to all of the top sportsbooks in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique benefits. Most importantly, all of these sportsbooks have valuable sign-up offers for new users. And when you register through our link, you will automatically receive the top offer at each one, allowing you to start line shopping with an enhanced bankroll. Guys, it's simple. When you use multiple sportsbooks, you ensure that you can always access the best available odds, which is key to successful and profitable sports betting. So, if you want to take advantage of these incredible benefits and support our brand at the same time, please consider signing up for your next sportsbook through our link in the description below, signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. If you're planning on signing up for a new sportsbook anyways, you might as well use our link and support the boys. So, one more time, that's signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. This podcast is sponsored by SeatGeek, the absolute best ticket app out there. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, making it quick and easy to get the best deals to tickets at your favorite sporting event. SeatGeek does this awesome thing where they score each ticket out of 10 based on its value, so you know whether you're getting a good or a bad deal. Last time I got tickets to see the Devils play, I first saw red tickets. I waited it out, monitored the price in-app, And once I saw green, I pulled the trigger. SeatGeek makes it that easy. And here's the best part. SeatGeek has completely hooked us up. Boys in the Booth listeners get $20 off their first purchase on SeatGeek with the promo code BOYSINTHEBOOTH in all caps. Click the link in our description to download the app, and remember to get your discounted tickets using the code BOYSINTHEBOOTH in all caps. Get great seats for a fraction of the cost with SeatGeek.
All right, fellas, we've got 3 teams here to wrap up the Central, and we'll go to the St. Louis Blues next. 46 points on the year. They're 4-5-1 in their last 10 as well, along with Arizona. So, what do we have to say about the Blues? Obviously, they made the big coaching change a little while ago. Craig Berube out after winning the Stanley Cup with the Blues in 2019. Drew Bannister has been the guy for a little while now. What do we have to say about the Blues? We know they're retooling. They had 3 first-round picks in 2023. What do we got on the Blues?
This team started out poor, started out terribly. They've kind of slowly started to turn things around, kind of the opposite situation as the Arizona Coyotes. But the real problem here has been team defense. They have allowed a ton of chances. They're actually smack in the middle of Chicago, San Jose, Buffalo, and Columbus when it comes to chances allowed. And those are both high and medium danger as well. And then on top of that, they've been struggling to put together scoring at times. There's been some times where, the top dogs are really killing it, and Thomas and Kyrou. Buchnevich has continued to be just this strangely productive goal scorer in the NHL. Mm-hmm. But they can't really put it together in multiple games in a row. And that's really been the struggle for this team. I still wouldn't be surprised to see them, like you said, Chad, overtake a Nashville by the end of the year, or be, battling with Arizona in meaningful games, trying to get that last wildcard spot. But it wasn't there at the beginning of the year. The coaching change has given this team a bit of that coaching bump, as you guys mentioned last week. But they've got to put together the goal or the scoring, as well as stopping the chances.
Yeah, and that's gonna come, right? Because they've got guys in the pipeline. Like, this isn't going to be the team that, I guess like like the big names like Thomas and Kyrou, like those guys will be here. Maybe even Kevin Hayes, will be here when this team is eventually good. But, they're in a bit of a retool, and this is kind of where we expected them to be. Pick them to finish in the 7th spot, currently sitting in the 6th spot, 1 up on Minnesota. Are they a playoff bubble team? Maybe. Does it help them if they make the playoffs? Maybe for morale, you can make that argument. But at the end of the day, this team wasn't expected to be that good, and they're going to get a decent pick at the end of the year, and they're going to turn this thing around relatively quick. I think so. They're kind of following, and we've talked about this before, they're kind of following the Dallas Stars model.
That's
where,
right.
You've got a good mix of old and young, and you try to make it work in a short period of time. So I have no problem with where St. Louis is in the standings right now, and it is pretty much where we thought they were going to be. I will still say though, and this was a point in when we talked about the Central in the preseason, I said I would take Arizona at every position over St. Louis. I think I still would, if I'm being honest.
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. And Case, you mentioned it, man. Like, they don't defend well enough. Well, again, like, Chad, I think you mentioned this before the season started. Looking at this back end, it's old, expensive, and just not very good. It's a lot of money for guys like Krug, Parayko, Falk, Scandella, who's been banged up, Nick Leddy as well. And this team just hasn't been the same since Alex Petrangelo's departure to the Vegas Golden Knights. I think that's the biggest thing with this group.
The one thing I will say, I'll agree that, the defense has been a main cause of those chances allowed. But the one thing I will say is that if this team somehow made the playoffs, your tune would change on this D-Corps.
That is very true. And I won't dispute that.
I mean, how many Nick Leddy, 200 playoff games or something like that?
That's true. Yeah. A lot of experience back there.
Yeah.
But you have to get there first. And it's not just the experience, Harp, it's how they play too. They're big and mean. They might be slow, but they're big and mean. And in the playoffs, the game slows down, and we see that every single year. It's a tale of two seasons.
Yeah, when Zach Bogosian becomes one of the best playoff defensemen, it's because he plays like a Marco Scandella and a Parayko and Leddy, Falk, all these guys. They all play the same way.
That's true.
It's a good point, Case. I'm glad you brought that up.
It is an excellent point, especially a guy like Parayko. Like, that guy is just a monster. That's a really good point for sure. All right, fellas, 7 and 8 now. The Minnesota Wild, who we were super, super wrong about. We thought this team would be in third. Yes, given the fact that they are in cap jail a little bit here with the dead money from the Suter and Parise buyouts.
Say how much. It's ridiculous. Say how much.
No, we've said it.
It's almost $14 million.
There we go.
That's too much.
We're beating a dead horse here.
What are you doing?
With the dead cap on this team? But look, I think we thought, and I think a lot of people thought, that they would still be competitive and still be better than this. And look, it's been a tough year on and off the ice for this team. And, you have the investigation with Bill Guerin and that, and, for verbal abuse or whatever it was. And there were no legitimate findings there. But, that's obviously going to disrupt things. Dean Evison is let go, and just the Kirill Kaprizov being injured and not quite being the same player this year, the spotty goaltending, all those things. So yeah, Minnesota is it's been a tough season for the Wild, and they are kind of free falling out of the race here. I know that Guerin is not ready to wave the white flag when it comes to not making the playoffs, but we're getting pretty close, or we may already be there with this team, right, guys? Like, what do we have to say about the Wild?
Well, I think that the goaltending has been probably the biggest problem, if I had to pick one, because, Fleury has not been great. Gus has not been great. And Wallstedt, they took a shot at him, and he proved to not be ready yet. But I think what's really wrong with this team is that they have not put it all together at once yet this season. They started out really poor. I'm getting deja vu here. The coaching change helped once again with this team, but it was a little too late. Like, they are getting scoring from the guys we expected, and Kaprizov and Boldy and Zuccarello continuing to do just ungodly things at his age. And we've kind of got our answer. We were saying they need to figure out who's the 1C. Is it Marco Rossi? Well, he has been that as of late. So that's been, great to see. They've actually been pretty good defensively. They've allowed the 6th least expected goals against in the league. They just haven't put it all together yet. They haven't had it all happen at the same time. And that's what's really killing this team.
Yeah, and if you're not allowing a ton of high quality chances, you expect one of your two goalies in your tandem situation to step up and kind of take advantage of that, and that just hasn't happened. There's talks that Fleury could be out the door at the trade deadline, which I think they should do, because his value, is only going to continue to go down, as over the last few years. So if there's a deal out there, I would say take it. By the way, the number's 14.7 over of dead money, which is just disgusting. I don't know how they ever expected to be competitive with a salary cap like that. But like you said, Harp, we're beating a dead horse here.
We are.
If they're defending well, then they need to score more. But like you said, Case, they haven't been able to do both at the same time, and that's been hurting them.
Just looking it up quickly, Chad, no movement clause on Marc-Andre Fleury, so it's going to be totally up to him to waive that. That. And we know he's been a little hesitant in the past about where he goes.
But you're at the very tail end of your career, just like Jonathan Quick. If you get one more chance to win a Stanley Cup, you take it. And I think that's what Fleury would consider. I obviously, I have no idea about what the player's thinking, but if I were him in that situation, that's what I would do. no movement clauses exist so that you can't get traded against your will. But I think Fleury actually would want to go. I think most people would.
Just not to Chicago. Or what team was it that he said? Absolutely not.
I forget. I mean, he did play in Chicago, so it wasn't them, but it was, maybe another team. I'm not sure.
Well, we know that things did not end well with him in Vegas either. I mean, that wouldn't even be an option, but.
No. And they wouldn't even be a team who needs him. But, like LA, like they could use a goalie, maybe. Like
Colorado, like we mentioned.
Colorado, yeah.
But it was Edmonton that he refused to go to.
Oh, okay.
Really?
From Chicago.
Oh, did not know that. Or I might have known that and forgot it. But point is, this team's done. They're so far out of the picture already. Like, we're talking about selling for a reason here. Like, count your losses, come back better next season. Hopefully your young guys are even a bit better. Like a guy who we haven't really talked about is Brock Faber.
Oh, unreal.
He's been so good.
He has been. Yeah.
So maybe just count your losses this season and come back better next year, and I hope you have better goaltending and things can click in unison,
Yeah, exactly. Faber impressed us when he came in the playoffs last year and thought like, okay, he'll be a very good top 4 defenseman for a long time for this team. Well, now he's looking like an elite defenseman for this team who plays a ton of minutes at such a young age. I can't believe it. And Jared Spurgeon has been banged up and hasn't had a great year. And so even more of the responsibility has been on Faber. It's been really impressive. But the back end overall, it's not good enough. They add Bogosian, which helps a little bit depth-wise, but they, it didn't work out with Addison, and they've got guys like Merrill and Middleton, who's not having a great year. So it just, there's just a lack of depth there. And obviously the dead cap money is a big factor in that.
Oh, the dead cap is killing them. But I still like this decor if Spurgeon's healthy. I
do too.
You slot him in. Dakota Maramis has actually been not bad considering
that's true.
He came out of the AHL last year, but Jacob Middleton is a strong defensive defenseman who's decided to start putting the puck in the net. I think he's at 7 goals now, which is a shock there. But Jonas Brodin, we've everyone talks about him. He's like that guy that's so underrated that he's overrated at this point. So I don't know. I think it's Spurgeon is healthy. This team still has a good decor, and we're seeing that in the expected goals against being so low.
Well, that's what I was going to say. The expected goals against at 5-on-5 are really low. Like they're number 6 in the league. In all situations, though, they're about middle of the pack. So that tells me that their penalty kill is getting caved in. So I wonder if that's more of a personnel problem up front. They don't have maybe enough defensive forwards. It'd be something to look into, but that's just what some of the numbers are telling me right now. All of that being said, everyone's blue line, every team's blue line can get better. No blue line is perfect. So imagine they had $14.7 million to sign Matt Dumba. That would make their defense better.
Yes. Definitely. I think he clearly is a big loss on that blue line. Absolutely. Good points there about the blue line. Didn't realize that there were better numbers there than I thought, and that a guy like Middleton is starting to put the puck in the net a little bit, but certainly when you have injuries, it gets pretty thin back there. But yeah, Brock Faber's been impressive. He could certainly win the Calder Trophy this year as well.
Wide open now.
Yeah, definitely. With Connor Bedard out, and we're going to go to the Chicago Blackhawks now to finish up this division. Dead last in the Central. That's what we expected. We knew it. It was another year of the rebuild for the Blackhawks, and despite having Bedard, it was still going to be tough sledding for the Blackhawks. Just so many injuries, man. It's been brutal for this team. 3-7 in their last 10. Despite having Bedard out of the lineup, which just sucks for him and for the team. Surprisingly, they've stayed competitive. Like, they only lost 2-0 to Vancouver last night, and they beat the Islanders in overtime last weekend. Like, they've been in some games, but just they're so banged up. They're so thin. I think like one night against the Calgary Flames, they won, and combined their entire forward group added up to like $13 million or something like that, with all the guys they had out of the lineup: Bedard, Taylor Hall, Athanasiou, the list goes on. So, but I like what Chicago's doing, just continuing along. They might get Macklin Celebrini. Could you imagine if they win the draft lottery for the second year in a row? People will be rioting. So anyway, but what do we have to say about Chicago to finish off?
I think it'll be a little bit less of a piss off if they win it this year, because they're going to be dead last. Well, San Jose, God,
probably second last.
Forgot about them. Jeez. Okay, yeah, maybe people are going to be mad. They're going to jump from 2 to 1. But yeah, Harp, I think the injuries are the main problem with this team. Their momentum they had at the beginning of the season was absolutely killed, with, Hall going down, definitely hurt. And then Bedard, who was actually carrying this team, he got absolutely rocked by Brendan Smith. Clean hit.
Skated right into him.
Brendan Smith just stood still.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually thought that this team was going to be playing a lot of like interesting, fun games to watch. Harper, you just mentioned that they have still been doing that, but I thought so more when they had Tyler Johnson and Athanasiou and Hall and Beauvillier and Bedard. But the team is so beat up now. It's looking pretty bleak on forward. I will say I've watched a couple games, and I'm really impressed with Korchinski and how he's played to start this season. And I think that he's going to have a very, very bright career ahead of him. But yeah, like, this team is not good.
No. Yeah, in the preseason, we picked them to finish 8th. They're sitting in 8th. They are not moving from 8th. They have 30 points in 47 games. In the preseason, we said, or at least I said, I could see them having, 65, 70 points. But like Casey just alluded to, that was before all of the injuries. So,
Corey Perry, when they had him too.
Yeah. And now he's in Edmonton, and nobody still knows what he did, and we'll never find out because it's the NHL, and we don't even know what Val Nichushkin did last year in Seattle. So
that's right.
It is what it is. But Chicago, a couple things. They're going to be okay next year, really. Like, if people are healthy, if players on this team are healthy next season, they're going to be like, I don't want to predict now. It's middle of the season, but like, they're going to be better off than they are this year, I think is safe to say.
Oh, of course.
And that will also be after getting another really high pick, which is just great for them. But I'll say this, you like Chicago, you have no players. Sign Phil Kessel. Why have they not signed Phil Kessel? Like, it's mind-boggling.
Just to get him to 1,000 points. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And to continue his streak. Like, it just, I don't know. It's one of those things, like, it just seems odd, but I guess Chicago isn't in the business of treating players well, so it shouldn't be surprising.
Can you tell me, that without looking, who their current active point leader is?
I can.
I honestly have no idea. I don't think I've looked at Chicago stats all year. I would guess Dickinson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Great guess.
Yep.
Wow. How many points does he have? Just curious.
Oh, he's like 24 in 47 games, is the leader after Connor Bedard.
Yeah. I mean, they're on pace for like...
has been good as well.
In points per game, Kurashev is second after Bedard.
Yeah. I mean, they're on, like, the team is on pace for like 55 points or so. Like, that's tough.
It's bad. They're
like less than 200 anyway. They're on pace for, but
yeah.
To wrap up, I think we're done with the Central. But to wrap up, I wanted to say, do you guys remember the controversy of the preseason show when we were talking about the Central?
Oh yeah,
the video of Case saying that Chicago is like an expansion team got like 15,000 views for some reason.
They just didn't understand what I was trying to say.
So we better not say too much more about Chicago, or else we're gonna.
Oh my God!
Have
especially that one.
Comments.
That one guy, that wannabe rapper or whatever, that was all over us about.
Yeah,
about
like
that. And I don't care that I said that either.
From the depths of SoundCloud to protect the Chicago Blackhawks because they need protecting. Anyway.
Again, hey, like come at us, speak all you want and stuff. We encourage it because it's more engagement for us. So it's great all the way around.
I just wanted to say that because when I listened back, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And then went back and watched the reel and I was like, oh my God, people are nuts.
I know. I couldn't believe it's such a random thing too. But a couple more things with the Blackhawks. Again, I like the direction that they're going in. Next season, I think if they can stay healthy, they'll be pretty good. Like I could kind of see them taking a step like Arizona did last year or even this year. Not be a playoff team, obviously, but like they should be better. Case, I'm with you. Korchinski, very impressive. Alex Vlasic as well, guys, is another young defender on this team. Yeah, he's a big body. He can defend really well. His plus minus is good on a bad team, and he's looked great so far. Also, Chad, you'll like this. Peter Mrazek has actually been pretty good for this team.
Why would I like year. That?
Well, joking, obviously, but you know, God. Like they bring back, they re-sign Foligno, they re-sign Dickinson, which I really like because you need players, right? Like they need players, they need good pros, and those guys have obviously fit in really well with this team and have been good leaders. And they might bring back Mrazek, like a guy who was a throw-in, a cap dump, and they got a first-round pick out of it from Toronto, as we know, at the Montreal draft. Like he's looked pretty good for this team, and they may decide to hang on to him as well. So I like what Chicago's got going on, but they're a bad team right now.
They're gonna have a good back end here eventually. Like, looking at
and a big back end as well.
Yeah. Like between Korchinski, Alex Vlasic, Wyatt Chicken on a Kaiser, Isaac Phillips, Del Mastro, Allen, Rinzel, Crevier has actually looked pretty good so far. Like it's going to be a good back end eventually.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Big, long, guys. And big, long, and mobile. And we've seen that time and time again. That's what wins championships in this league. So anyway, whether you like it or not, it's a bright future in Chicago. So, all right, fellas, that wraps up the Central Division, and looking forward to the next two because we go over to the East. And next week we're going to do our in-season check-in episode on the Metro. So, looking forward to getting to that. As always, thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the hockey, and we will chat with you next Wednesday. Take care.
This has been another episode of Boys in the Booth with Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams. Connect with the Boys in the Booth on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Boys in the Booth. Visit boysinthebooth.com for show details. And don't forget, you can become a patron of the podcast for just $1 a month at patreon.com/boysinthebooth.